Live. We should be live. All right, I'm letting the Discord know we're live. Give me a second, guys. We are live. Enter. Now our Discord knows that we're live. Let me double check this audio before I just do all this. So another masterclass for your no, I'm just waiting. Hold on. All right. I'm letting the Discord. We are officially live. So I want to thank everybody who is watching currently, who's watching the replay. I just wanted to invite our Discord in. So today we're going to be mixing vocals. We're going to be doing stock plugins, Waves plugins. We're going to be doing Logic, FL. So we're going to get a nice blend, hip hop, R&B. Okay. So let me make sure this camera is working right. Is this camera working right? It looks a little glitchy. I guess it doesn't matter if I'm small screen anyway. But let me just make sure all my buttons are working. We should be good to go. So let me just double check, make sure we have people here. All right, Skyder's here. We got Crick Edits in here. We got Q-Dub in here. What up? All right, so let's get it started. Without further ado. That was a press button. Press button. All right, so we are going to be mixing this track we recorded back in, I think, 2018. Funny enough, Travis texted me today just before the live. I'm pretty sure there's an energetic tie with this song, because every time I pull up the song to mix, somebody from the session hits me up like the same day or the same time. It's the weirdest thing ever. I don't know what kind of magic is involved with this record, but Travis Marsh recorded the guitar along with Todd Pritch. They both did the guitar on this track. We had Audrey, you guys know her as Aldrizzle on Instagram. She did the vocal, and Walter, I don't know if Walter did a verse, but we did other songs, but this is just one song out of the, I think, 3 or 4 that we ended up doing. So we recorded at Paramount Studios, Room B in Hollywood, and it was, the vocal chain was a Sony C800G. That was going into a Neve 1073, and then from the Neve 1073 it went to an 1176, and then from the 1176 into Pro Tools. That was the recording chain. So that's how the vocals were processed. So it's not just, you know, a crazy vocal going in, it's super pristine going in. So here's the vocal. Let me solo. How do you get rid of these little things? Okay, let's solo just this track here.
I could feel it by the way you used to touch me.
I think the tempo's like 118.
By the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me.
Now, if you plan on time-based effects, let me make sure this is.
I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Slowly fading away.
All right, so if you ever have time-based effects like delay or certain reverbs, you do want to lock in your BPM. You don't always need a BPM, but that's, again, if you have time-based effects, you could do it that way. If you need synchronized effects. So the first thing I like to do is listen to what the vocal is trying to do in the entire mix. What's the goal of the vocal? Is it to be super energetic? Is it supposed to be laid back? Is it supposed to be just cutting through and not like super loud or super anything, just cutting through? So let's listen to it in context. Make sure you guys can hear it. Can you guys hear this audio? So let me know if you can hear this audio. What computer? I'm on a Mac Mini M4 Pro with 2 terabytes and 24 gigs of RAM. I don't know how much VRAM though, but 24 gigs of RAM. I definitely should have got way more storage. The warning for anybody getting a Mac Mini, you probably want the 4 terabyte if you could afford it. And I don't want to have to keep going through external hard drives to store stuff. I'd rather have it internal for my video work and everything. Okay, you can hear? Okay, I was just making sure. Thank you guys for letting me know. All right, so this record, the vocal on this record, the vocal truly isn't the star. The star is the guitar. So we need to identify that every vocal in every track is not the star. I don't care how much people tell you the vocal needs to sit on top. If you listen to Michael Jackson In some of his early mixes, his vocal was tucked beneath the drums. If you truly listen to his hit records, his vocals were not above the beat. So when people tell you the vocals need to be above the beat and all this type of stuff, it's not always true. You need to understand what's the vocal's point in a song. So this one is just what we need to solve, I guess, as mixers is clarity means that you have two things fighting for the same spot. So think about sounds like people in a room. Bigger sounds are bigger people. Like low frequencies are bigger people. Higher frequencies are smaller people. Okay? Because lower frequencies take up a longer wavelength. So in a room, if we had people in this room, I can't have two heavyset people sitting in the same spot. They're going to knock each other over. And they're going to be fighting for that spot in the room because they can't both exist in that spot. So when you think of sounds in that way, it makes sense. You can't have two people in the same spot in a room, quite literally. The further you are from the speakers, the lower the volume. If you're on the right side of the room, you're panning right. If you're on the left side of the room, you're panning left. If you're behind the speakers, you have what are called the early reflection zones off the walls. So everything has to be in a place is my point. And when two sounds are fighting for that same spot, the same place, we deem it as blurriness. Okay. So when people say clarity, it's not a frequency. Clarity is removing the conflict between two instruments. And usually speaking, the vocal tends to compete with instruments. And instruments, the reason that they compete is because of a concept called the fundamental frequency. Every sound, and I'm not going to go into the deep studies because I teach this in Mixing Fundamentals. You guys can learn about that at busyworksbeats.com/black. It's literally 80 plus of our courses: music theory, music production, beat making, sound design, mixing, mastering. It's so much in there. But also too, we have 4,000 sounds for you guys on top of that. So it gets pretty crazy in my plugins as well. So just go to busyworksbeats.com/black for the black box offer. We only do this at the end of the year. And essentially with the vocal, it's fighting with something. Okay. And usually speaking, the vocal fundamental frequency, the lowest frequency a vocal can make, is fighting with the lowest frequency an instrument can make. So that's why you have a viola at the higher registers. You have a violin under here. You have, I don't know all the instruments, cello down here, tuba down here. They all have different starting points for where they can begin oscillating. And so usually speaking, the vocal starting point where it oscillates is fighting with something else that's oscillating in that same area. So we need to not turn the vocal high frequencies up. We need to remove the fact that they're fighting for the same space. So we have to decide what is in the way. If I had to guess, I would definitely say the guitar. Now, a way you can kind of test this is when you turn the instrument on, is it harder to hear the thing that's in question? And the answer is yes. You can kind of hear that the guitars are washing out that vocal. So what we're going to do is go to the channel rack. Let's double click, hit Control L in FL Studio. Now everything's in the mixer. So first we're going to start with the Waves plugins. Now I think these are already panned from Pro Tools, but what I was going to do is pan one guitar left, one guitar right. They don't have to be super hard right and super hard left. But if you want to create more width or more, I'll say more perceived space, because now they're not occupying left and right as they were before. Like this isn't 100% left. Okay, it's like panned 50% right so that you have some signal on the left, some signal on the right. What I'm going to do is completely pan this to the hard right, hard left, so that they're completely only playing in one ear. They're playing basically the same music, but subtly different. And this is literally a live recording of two guitarists. I forget what key. I want to say F minor. I forgot the key. But they're in the booth just recording live into a microphone. There's no like pre-scripted anything. They just practiced the key a little bit and they're just improvising their way through. So there's subtle differences because they're two different people. So that opens up the middle. Okay, so I'm going to say a lot of terms. And again, I break this down into component thinking at busyworksbeats.com/black. I don't have time to cover every single thing about everything. But basically you want to think about creating room in the middle, which Drake does very well. His vocals stand out because there's nothing in the middle competing with Drake. It's just Drake's vocals, maybe a kick drum, maybe a snare, which are transient, meaning they don't last very long. But all the instrument stuff is usually on the side. Now the side is the difference between your left and your right ear. So when I pan this guitar left and I pan one to the right, anything that's similar in frequency, timing, and phase will collapse to the center, okay, the middle. So just because these are panned left and right does not mean we're not getting centered image. And the way you could test this is just simply turning your mix to mono. And if we still hear a guitar in the middle, then that means we're getting middle signal. Technically, that's incorrect logic because this is merging left and right. So it's not the proper terminology. But if I had a solo button for, let me see if I can find I'm trying to think what has mid-side solo on it in FL Studio. Maybe if we did Pro MB, and then we could switch this. Now I'm not showing you guys how to mix right here. I'm just trying to solo the middle section. So here's the middle section of this track. So we can hear guitar. Now if I switch this to the all right, so you couldn't hear me on the side image because my mic is mono, so you weren't gonna hear anything. Okay, so without further ado, now that you guys understand like the basics of what's happening and what we're trying to do in terms of make room for this vocal, now let's, one more caveat I gotta say before we get deep into this is when you guys are mixing vocals, the more compression you add, generally speaking, you're adding more harmonic tone. When you start adding frequencies, you're creating a whole nother instrument. So it's going to be harder to fit your vocal in the mix. The more you keep compressing it, harmonically speaking, not just volume wise, it's going to be harder harmonically speaking to fit your vocals in the mix because now it's a whole new instrument and now you have to deal with all these different frequencies that never existed in the first take. So the more you'll notice, the more you process the sound in your vocals, the more it's going to be hard to fit it into your track most of the time. Okay. So I try to do only what I need to do, if that makes sense. All right, so if you guys are on FL Studio, I had a really hard time installing Waves. I was like, why is this Waves not installing? So I just want to give you guys a quick tip because I just was so frustrated with this Wave stuff. So if you open up your options, go to Manage Plugins, and then you want to go to click all these things on the left just to rescan, do all these things on the left to troubleshoot. Click Find Installed Plugins, and what you want to install, because Waves usually gives you the names of the plugins, but they gave us shell VSTs for some reason, I guess to keep stuff easily organized, but it's more confusing this way because you don't know what they give you, like 6 versions and you're like, okay, which version? So I opened up the highest one thinking that was the latest version, but that's not it. So basically you just highlight these Wave Shell VST 3 16.1 0.2 all those, and then when you go to your mixer, you click the drop down. You open up, in this case, Wave Shell VST 16.0. This one has the list of all the plugins. But if you open up Waves 16.1, for example, it does not have that full list of plugins. And you're like, where's the plugins? Okay, so I stand corrected on. Wait, did this even switch? Let's do 16.1. I don't know why it keeps reading 16.0. Let's do this. So for example, I kept opening this one up, 16.4, and I was like, where are the plugins? And I clicked here. And then it says, hey, you need to sign up for a demo. And I'm like, demo? I just signed up for a subscription. So that was such a headache for like a half an hour. So hopefully I solved somebody's headache with the Wave stuff. Just open up Wave Shell 16.0. This one has all the plugins in it. Okay. Now that you guys understand that headache, let's move to RVox. Now RVox, I usually start with 2 things, EQ, compression. I'm going to go compressor first because compressors do more than just turn stuff up and turn stuff down. Compressors add frequencies to the vocal. So it's going to add stuff that was never there. Okay. And it just depends on the compressor. So if I add the compressor first, I'm adding frequencies. If I add an EQ after the compressor, I get to shape the tone of the things I just added. Basically, harmonics are like volume knobs on different harmonics. Okay. When we saturate, I meant to say. Saturation is like a volume knob on harmonics. And an EQ is just turning stuff up and turning stuff down depending on what you want, but it's not adding anything. Okay. So that's the difference here with the compressor. So that's why I'm going compressor first here. We're going to do RVox. Some people like RComp. It just depends on the sound that you guys are going for. Personally, I like RComp. It just has a more smooth envelope. So let's go to our, where is it at? Man, our comp. And we're going to lower the threshold here. Or this is the ratio, my bad. I haven't used this in a minute. Here's the threshold over here. And we're going to turn the ratio up. So we're actually pull it down. Man, this is confusing. Why did they not tell you? Oh, they do tell you ratio point. Okay, you can do expansion and compression. That's dope. All right. Anyway, so pull this down to turn the ratio down. So basically 2-to-1 ratio here. You don't need to obsess about ratios. 2-to-1 is very gentle. 4-to-1, you're going to definitely hear it. Anything above 4-to-1, like 8-to-1, you're talking like you would normally do that on drums. 10-to-1 is basically limiting at that point. So we stick between 2-to-1. There's no magic number. 2-to-1 is just very soft. Anytime you take out of your vocal 3 dB, 4 dB at a time, you're going to hear it audibly. You're going to hear the volume drop. And that's what we try to avoid with compressors. We don't want it to be like an obvious effect. It's kind of like this. Like if I add a Fruity stereo shaper and I create an obvious time delay, you're like, oh, that's delay. But if I add a very small amount of delay below 20 milliseconds, you're not going to perceive that as a delay. You're going to perceive it as a widener. So if I exaggerate that, okay, then we're hearing it as a delay. So the same with compression. We want to compress to where people can't even perceive it as compression. It's not a hard rule. I'm just telling you why. So we're barely touching this. You guys got to remember the vocals were compressed going into Pro Tools. So they're already pristine. Really, if I just turn this vocal up, I shouldn't need any plugins.
I could feel it by the way you used to touch me.
This is because it's already mixed as it's being recorded. And this is something that is hard to comprehend if you haven't gone to a really, really, really professional studio where they have top-notch audio engineers. If you can't record it well, mixing it won't make it sound much better. I can't say that. Put it this way. If you don't record it well, mixing it won't make it sound good. But if you record, it decently, you can mix it to sound better. Okay. Mixing is to make stuff better, not good. If this take was bad, it's bad. It doesn't matter how much stuff I throw at it. So I guess my encouragement for you guys trying to get better vocals is record better. Like, I'll show you guys a couple solutions that worked for me. So Mixbus TV put me onto this. It's called the GIK Acoustic Portable Isolation Booth, the PIB. So I have 2 of those. So it costs about $700 for 2 of those. And then I have an acoustic panel on top. I don't know how to make them, so I just bought them for like $100 or $200 or whatever. Pretty much $1,000 plus setup right here, but this gives you a clean vocal. And I have some acoustic paneling on the wall, but it gives me a clean vocal. If I just record it from my desk, which I am now, you guys are hearing the reflections off the ceiling because I don't have acoustic paneling here because there's a fan right there. And then I don't have like a ton of acoustic, paneling around the room. So you're going to hear all this bouncing back into the microphone. And that's the thing that you can't EQ out. You can't compress out. You can't, denoise reflections from a room naturally. That's why a lot of you guys struggle with vocal mixing is you're recording terribly. So this literally, I don't need plugins on this vocal.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch.
So when I'm adding plugins, I'm not doing it to correct something. I'm doing it to enhance something. And when you have that mindset about vocal mixing, it changes because now you're not making these dramatic moves trying to reduce all the flaws of your vocal. So I'm saying all this stuff early on because you guys will be you're like rabbits chasing in the wind, nothingness, because you just can't comprehend that something can sound this good from a recording. Okay, now let's turn the compressor on. Now, usually speaking, I have a fast release. Fast release is going to add more harmonic content to your sound. I would normally do a fast attack, but you don't want to do too fast of an attack because it could take away some of the pointiness of the audio. So we usually keep the attack at default or just at 30 milliseconds or so. And that allows for the pointiness of the audio to come through. If you have a compressor that just is at 0 attack, it's just going to squash down all the pointiness, and our ear doesn't like super linear things. It actually gets bored of linear things. So we have a fast release. This is really just adding harmonic content to the sound. But it's subtle in this.
without even saying.
So notice I'm not touching the gain. I'm not turning stuff up. You know, I just turn the volume down.
Oh, you used to
We're taking out about 2 dB here. It's very subtle. All right, now let's continue on with the wave stuff. Let's see what else Waves has in here. So here's where I would throw on RVox. Now RVox is a little more obvious of the harmonics that it adds.
Oh, you used to love me.
It adds an energy to the vocal.
Oh, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
See how it's adding this presence, okay? It's not just pulling up on the vocal, it's adding harmonics. If I ran a sine wave through this, just to test this, let me see. Now, we're getting kind of geeky. I'm starting to realize as I'm doing this. But what we're going to do is run this sine wave through this track. So what track is that? Track 12. And let's look at the signature. So let's go to Wave Candy. And hopefully this answers a lot about people wondering which plugin to use and all this type of stuff. All right, so right click, go to Spectrum. And I forgot a couple things. Let's turn the scale up and the resolution all the way up. So now we see a sine wave. Now if I turn these plugins off, a sine wave is only one frequency. So if I hold this note at 100 hertz, it's only, it should be a horizontal line right here. Now if I turn on RVox, we're seeing multiples of that line. This is called harmonic content. So now I see a line at 300 hertz, which is the third harmonic. I see a line at 500 hertz. So it's doing what's called odd harmonics. Okay, so it's not just pulling up the presence of the vocal, it's adding frequencies that were never there before. That's why RVox sounds different. Now let's do the same thing with our compressor. So as we can see, our comp doesn't just turn down volume, it's adding frequencies. It's adding the odd harmonics, 300, 500, 700, 900. So harmonics are basically multiples of what's called the fundamental frequency. So if the frequency at the bottom of a sound is 100 hertz, this is the lowest sound something can oscillate. Like I said, the fundamental frequency of a vocal, the fundamental frequency of a violin, they're all different. So let's say this bass, the lowest it can do is 100 hertz. The multiples of 100 hertz are called harmonics. So plugins and compressors are not just turning stuff up and down. It's adding frequencies that never existed. So the more compressors that you guys use in general, the more frequencies you're adding that never existed there. And now you have to reshape all these frequencies and it changes the timbre of your track. So that's when usually people run into a lot of issues with vocals, is when they start overly compressing, they're changing the tone completely. And now it's a new instrument. All right, so I'm just letting you guys know what we're doing.
You used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to tell.
So now we have the density, we have the presence of the vocal. Another plugin people love that kind of fills in the density of the body of the vocal is called MV2. Personally, I don't like the tone on the sound. I just don't like it. But some people swear by it. So we're going to turn up what's called the low levels. This is basically, just assume that
No, you used to love me.
the vocal's like a person. It's almost like the person has a head, they have a torso, and they have legs. And you're like, okay, where's the waist? You know, it's kind of like it needs that final little thing in between. This is what MV2 is doing. It's upward compression. So it's pulling up the areas that are not as loud and just making them more dense.
No, you used to love me.
So if you need that vocal to feel full from top to bottom, this is something you would
used
use.
to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to.
Let's turn it on and off. And all you got to do, guys, is listen to the weight of the audio. I'll switch it on and off.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Slowly fading away. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you tell me what changed? Was it me? Was it you? Was it? I know you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
All right, so now we got all the technical stuff out of the vocal. The last piece some people add is a limiter. Yeah, limiter. It just adds that tallness to the vocal. So some people swear by L2. Some people, you know, they're all going to change. This is the thing that sits the vocal on top of the beat.
Oh, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying.
You don't need to crank it all the way up to 0.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
And my ear is even hearing this limiter potentially adding harmonics. It's hard to tell. We would have to load up too many plugins to tell, but I'm pretty sure this is doing something else than just, you know, limiting it at 0.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
So now that vocal stands out. If I turn this whole chain off,
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Slowly fading away. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
but now that we've made the vocal louder, we can hear all of these tiny details. And this is where I get, like I said before, you guys run into issues mixing vocals, is when you keep, you know, saturating and adding these harmonics and pulling up all this detail. Then you're like, crap, I got to basically reshape the entire vocal. So here's where I think an EQ is useful. Personally, I'm a fan of Pro Q3. Let me know if I'm going too fast too, guys, in the chat. Am I going too fast? I want to make sure you guys are keeping up. We got Can Akbasli. The Wiz is here. The Waves bundle is a great investment. Yeah, it's only $14.99 a month. It's pretty affordable if you do this professionally. I mean, a clean sample works harder for you than any plugin. Very true. Vontasonic says, I always wondered what that was in the background. What? Oh, this black thing? Yeah, it's a vocal booth. Loris is here. We got Juris in here. Cheers from Latvia. Shout out to you. Radar is here. Okay, I was making sure I wasn't losing you. Dan Tanner, thank you. I always mix in mono to make sure I can hear all the sounds and make the right corrections. Yeah, there's definitely a place for mono. My favorite thing to do with mono is just listen to the dynamics of a track. It's a lot easier to hear the movement of a track in mono because you're only listening to one position. You're not listening to 7,000 different panning positions. AI says, how good is the CLA 76? I don't know if I have the CLA 2 in this bundle. I have the Essentials Waves, so I'm not sure I have the LA 2. I don't even know if I have the LA 76. I'll see. Ozone Mastering. It's funny, I just used Ozone Mastering. It's like you read my mind. That's so weird. I used Ozone Mastering today, the mastering assistant. That is so weird you brought that up, Sir Bones. Yeah, 24 gigs of RAM. Yeah, RAM is for opening up programs. Like if you have 7,000 tabs on your Google Chrome, you need RAM for that because they all take up space, like actual space. That's why you need RAM. All right, cool. Just making sure you guys are keeping up. Alpha is here. Vins is here. Coin is here. Can you explain Pro Q? Yeah, of course. All right, I was making sure you guys weren't getting too lost. I didn't want to. Once I get into harmonics, I know it gets too scientific, so I just gotta make sure. All right, with Pro Q, we're gonna put this on natural phase mode.
No, you used to love me.
I learned that from Amon Jackson. He teaches mixing, so if you guys need a mentor or somebody with professional advice, you go to people like that who can give you shortcuts, but you got to pay him. He's not just gonna waste his time talking to newbies. All right, so here we can see density. What I love about FabFilter is you can switch down here the analyzer mode, and you can put on this like collision mode, which basically shows you where the frequency is very dense. And you can also put on this spectrum grab mode, which will show you where the resonance points poke up. You don't have to necessarily address these resonance points. It's just showing you where the energy is building up. Most of the time with your vocals, whenever you hear that piercing S, it's only piercing when it gets too resonant, like too pointy at a specific frequency and too loud. But you know, frequencies and sounds are really just combinations of resonances. So resonance isn't bad. It's just when it gets too focused and too loud, is it bad?
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even.
So, okay, let's turn the limiter back on.
No, you used to love.
So what are some characteristics of this vocal?
No, you used to love me.
It sounds
You could
warm.
prove it without even saying a thing.
It sounds airy.
I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you
Not a lot of mud just because of the way it was recorded, but it is a little up close. It feels like it's close to the mic. So that frequency, that closeness to the mic is usually 100 to 200 hertz, depending on basically it's the fundamental frequency of that person's voice. And that could be anywhere from 1 to 400 hertz. It's just the biggest hill at the lowest point of their vocal.
No, you
So this point right here, that's her fundamental. So if I turn this up,
No, you used to love me.
it's going to create that, because that's the lowest frequency her voice is making.
No, you used to love.
and that creates that proximity. So if you don't want as much proximity and you want them to feel like they're further back, we're going to do negative values. Now I'm not going to cut it 3 dB because then we're completely cutting out the identity for her vocal. The thing about the fundamental, a lot of people get wrong, is they want to cut this zone and just turn it down. Sometimes that works. Most of the time, the fundamental is the actual identity for the sound. Usually speaking, you guys want to cut what's called the second harmonic. So here we're going to take this low frequency and multiply it times 2. So 260 times 2 is like 520. No, is that right? 520? I can't do math, mental math. 26 times 2 is, 52. So 520. So let's, instead of looking at 260, let's look at 520 and boost this. And here, does this sound pleasing or not?
No, you used to love me. Thing.
Because usually this is the frequency we don't want.
You embrace.
That's not bad. Now when you solo it, it's going to sound like a telephone because we're just soloing it. But let's cut it and see if it makes a difference. Let's cut about 2 to 4 dB. Let's do 4 dB.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face, oh yeah. Slowly fading away.
It's a little bit cleaner, less, it's very hard to hear the difference you just made because it's such a subtle thing that blends in with everything else. Again, when you solo the frequency, it's gonna sound like a telephone. But in context.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying.
You're not hearing the telephone.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even.
But most of the time, you guys want to cut the second harmonic, not the fundamental. Now, if you're very bass heavy like myself, sometimes you do want to cut the fundamental because it's just too powerful. So in this case, I'll cut the fundamental just to show you guys, but normally I don't cut the fundamental.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by.
And if you want to hear what happens when you cut the fundamental, here's what happens. So for example, I have an EQ set up and right now it's off, so you hear my raw voice. But if I turn it on, you're not hearing my full voice. You're hearing like this thinned out voice, and it makes me actually stress my voice because I can't hear myself the way I hear myself naturally. So it throws me off all the time. It makes me sound more nasally, but this is not what I actually sound like. This is what I sound like. So we don't want to cut that much essence out of a vocal. Okay.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
It just depends how much we're going to cut the fundamental, but don't do things you don't need to do. Like if it doesn't sound bad, just leave it alone. All right, let's hear this in context.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me.
All right, now let's talk about, effects on the aux channels. So we're going to create a new mixer channel here in FL Studio. Let's call it delay. So you can have infinite aux channels. There's no like right or wrong, but the main ones are delay, reverb, and some do parallel saturation. I don't think we need parallel compression here. And some do saturation channels. So let's do parallel saturation. Now the only drawback to me turning off that filter is you guys hear me typing. So that is the one drawback to having that EQ turned off. So we have parallel saturation, parallel compression, reverb, delay, and let's try a widener. Now in FL Studio it's different because these channels that we're listening to the vocal on, this is actually a stereo channel. But in Pro Tools you might have a mono channel. So what you would have to do to make any left and right decisions, like if you had a delay, it's not going to give you that left-right effect because you're on a mono channel, a one directional channel. So you would have to send a duplicate of your vocal over to a stereo channel. So in other DAWs, you would have to left click and use your buses and everything. But in FL Studio, just click here. So now we have the vocal. We're going to open up on the delay channel, Fruity Delay 3. Now, anytime you're using effects on those aux channels, 99% of the time you want them at 100% wet level because you want only the effect. Sometimes you might turn it down, but most of the time you're having the plugins at 100% mix level or the wet level all the way up. So now I can set this delay however I want, and let's set a pan, a left-right pan.
No, you used to love me.
Now, as we hear this delay, the issue that we're having is now the delay it keeps going. It overlaps the vocal.
No, you used to love love me. You could prove it without even saying.
So let me show you guys a more advanced technique. So we're going to open up a new plugin here called, actually we could do it two different ways. I'm debating how I want to do this. I'll show you guys the safer way. Let's open up Parametric EQ2. And on the vocal channel, we need to open up a new plugin called Fruity Peak Controller. On the delay channel, let's go back. Now you can do this on the fader as well if you have a signal that's very strong. But in this case, we have a very small delay signal. It's not going to get too crazy. So we're going to go to Parametric EQ2. On the far left, you have what's called the gain knob, the main level. So let's right click this and link it to controller. We're going to link this to the Fruity Peak controller. So by default, this is set to have this at negative whatever, and then it will boost the volume every time the vocal triggers.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a
So let me pull these both up.
I could feel it by the.
So basically every time the vocal triggers, it will turn up this fader.
No, you used to love me.
Well, we want to do it the opposite way. We want to turn down the volume every time the vocal triggers, and we want the effect to be at 50%. Whenever you have a bipolar value parameter that can go up and down, it's called bipolar, then you want the bass level to be at 50%, which is the center. Okay, and we're telling the volume to go down. So every time this plugin hears the vocal, it will turn down the delay channel, and then every time it doesn't hear the vocal, it will turn the delay up. So basically what I'm saying is it'll talk like this, and you won't hear delay, like it only has delay when the vocal stops.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it.
Now other DAWs have this more smoothly figured out. Like in Pro Tools, there's a plugin called Mod Delay that does this automatically. They call it ducking, I think, in that plugin. I might be using the wrong terminology there. But basically, to make this smoother, you have to kind of eyeball the decay curvature or the tension knob here.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it.
See, it's not as smooth.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it.
See how now the delay only kicks in when that vocal stops. So you really have to finesse the peak controller to make that smoother, because right now it's very jagged.
No, you used to love me.
But right now it's decent enough. I don't want to make this.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way.
Let's switch the tension and see what.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by.
So it's close enough. Again, you got to massage those like values to really get a perfect sound. But again, in certain plugins like Mod Delay, it's built in.
No,
so that's how you can control the delay. You could do the same exact thing for reverb. Let's open up a reverb. I think Waves, man, I haven't used Wave stuff in so long. Waves has a reverb called, I want to say Real Verb, or is that might be UAD. Man, what's the Waves reverb called? True Verb, that's what it's called. So it's either True Verb or I swear they had another one called like Real Verb or something like that. Let's use True Verb for now, but if I remember the name of the other reverb, then I'll pull it up. Dang, I can't think of the name of that reverb. It is what it is though. All right, True Verb.
No, you used.
Now there's different types of reverbs. You have long tail reverbs, okay, that just have a long tail to it. You have short reverbs, and then you have plate reverbs that are kind of in the medium zone. So you have room reverbs, which are smaller areas. You have plate reverbs, which are bigger areas, and you have hall reverbs, which are super massive areas. Those are the three main types of reverb. So here under the preset, I need to load up a big area like a cathedral or something very big. So it has a long tail to it, it's called. So we're going to find the vocal and send it as a duplicate. So we're clicking on this channel vocal. We're sending it as a duplicate over to the reverb. And now it has a bigger sound. Now, depending on the genre, you might have more or less reverb. It just is genre dependent.
No, you used to love me.
Now, as you guys can hear, it has the same issue where the reverb just kind of, it rings and it just continues. It depends on the genre. You don't always have to
No, you used to.
do this technique I'm about to show you, but in this case, we're going to do the same technique. we're going to open up
No, you used to.
another Fruity Peak controller in this case. And here we're going to rename this so we know what's what. Let's call this Peak controller number 2. And we need to have the same parameters, base level 50%. All right, read the values in the top left of FL. Tension somewhere around there. I'm just kind of eyeballing the values I had before. All right, now we're going to go to the reverb, add an EQ after it. Or you could do this directly on the fader. You could right click, link to controller. But for me, I'm just going to do a lighter way of doing that, which is to add an EQ and control the gain with the far left fader here. Right click, link to controller, switch this to peak 2. So now every time the vocal comes in, it will turn down the reverb unless it stops singing.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it with that.
Now this is a little bit jarring. So let's not do it as aggressive. That's a little aggressive.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me.
So this one, I basically set it to like 25% of what we had on the delay, because delay is like, you can hear delay, whereas reverb is more of a texture. It's not this thing that's just needs to be on and completely off at the, it just sounds too dramatic.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
And we could also have it the opposite way, which is instead of turning down the reverb, we could have it flip to where we turn on the reverb when the vocal comes in and then off. So this is called gated reverb.
No, you used to love me.
But usually the gate is on the reverb channel. This is a lot to explain as I'm explaining it. So basically we're just setting the vocal to turn on the reverb. And when the vocal's not talking, the reverb's off
No, you
for the most
used
part.
to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you.
Now it's less obvious, so let me solo this.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a
It's a little
thing.
uh, glitchy, so let's go back to the parameter here and fix the decay curvature.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by.
So see how the reverb kind of turns itself down?
No, you used to love me.
So I'll turn off this this EQ just so you guys hear the dramatic difference. Here's before.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
Now again, this is not wrong. It's just the reverb is very ringy and it adds frequencies that you might not want in your track.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the
Now let's turn on
way
the
you used to touch me.
modulation.
I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Slowly fading away, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you tell me what changed? Was it me? Was it you? Was it? I know you used to love me.
So it gives you a little more control over the reverb. Again, the Fruity Peak controller, you gotta smooth it out a little bit by just going back and forth with those parameters to get the more smooth approach. But the decay curvature helps with that kind of jagged on and offness. Now another technique, which is really just very specific, is the gated reverb. So if you wanted to do gated reverb, which is a little bit different of a concept, so without using that modulation we just created, we could use the noise gate of the Fruity limiter and set what's called a threshold and turn the gain down. So you will only hear frequencies that go above a certain threshold. Anything below that threshold you won't hear. So I'm going to exaggerate this.
No, you used to love me.
So here's,
so
now basically this limiter only allows us to hear stuff above this, like,
no, you used to love me. You could
and then it completely shuts the sound off. Now this is called gated reverb.
No, you used to love.
Usually used for more impact sounds. So if I were to process drums, let me see if I can find a drum channel.
Was it me? Was it you? Was it? I know you used to love me.
Gotta find the snare. Where's the snare? Here it is. All right, so let's process. Let me show you guys what it sounds like on drums. This is more of a drum technique. So we're gonna send the snare to the reverb. All right, and then we're gonna set it to, where's the snare? I just lost it. FS track 8. Here how it just cuts. Now again, FL doesn't offer the greatest gate controls, so if you want to get really granular and really professional, you could use Pro G. This gives you a little more envelope control, a little more smoothing in my opinion. Okay, so now it's not this jagged on and offness. So a lot of the 80s did this kind of gated drum technique, so that's different than what we're doing. We're doing modulated reverb. I know this is advanced and it's like, what the freak is he doing? But over time, you'll understand this concept. And personally, I don't always do the modulated thing, so we don't always need to do that. It's only if your track is very full. You don't want a bunch of reverb just floating around, because reverb can really just make stuff super hard to hear, basically. It adds a lot of conflict. So we don't want the reverb just hanging around for no reason.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying.
All right, now we have these other channels here for parallel compression. Let's open up a plugin called, I think there's a free plugin called TDR Takanokov or something like that. I forgot how to say it. Man, it's not called TDR. I forget how to spell it too. It has such a hard name to it. But let me find out what it's called. Man, I forgot how to spell that thing. Hold on, y'all. Let me do a quick Google search.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me.
All right, it's called Kotelnikov. Okay, of course it's some hard name. I don't know if I have it installed on here. I thought I did. I guess not. But anyways, a free plugin called TDR Kotelnikov. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe I just didn't. I swore I had it on here. Yeah, I do. It's just not listed. All right, so we're going to use this as a parallel compressor. There are 1,000 compressors out there with all different characteristics. There's no magical one. I'm only using this because this is free. Actually, we're supposed to be using wave stuff. So parallel compression, let's keep it waves, because I forgot this is waves mixing. We can be a little more aggressive on the aux channels, whereas when you're directly on a track, being really aggressive takes away from the original take. Unless you're doing like EDM or something where it's like expected to be exaggerated. So let's see what kind of compressor we can add here. We have so many options here. Again, every compressor is different. I guess let's just do either RVox or RX. I think it's called Renaissance X. Now, I think this is a compressor. So we're going to use this aggressive compression in parallel, meaning we're blending it in with the original.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without it.
So what I'm going to do is turn off the direct signal so that we can only hear the compressed parallel signal.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me.
Now, if I opened up a sine wave on channel 37, it will be a little more clear what we're actually adding. Because again, people think compression is just volume controls, way more than that. Let's run a sine wave through here and let's open up a wave candy so we can analyze what we're actually adding. So let's do wave candy. You turn the color knob up, turn the, where's it at? Oh, right click, go to spectrum, turn your bands all the way up and turn your scale all the way up and then make it bigger and then play G on your keyboard and this will give you the picture of the harmonics. Now I'm going to turn off the audio so we don't hear the tone. But it looks like here we have 100 hertz, we have 300 hertz, we have 500 hertz, and we have all these higher frequencies. So it tends to focus on the higher harmonics, it looks like, with this Renaissance X. So to see those higher frequencies, we got to lower the scale. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's very, very faint. There are these like horizontal lines at 9K, 12K, 15K, 16. Okay, they're very faint though, they're not super aggressive. So normally you would think this compressor would be doing way more than that, but that's what I see so far. And again, a faster attack means more harmonics. So that's the tone that we get out of that. So nothing, this is actually softer than Renaissance Compressor and Arvox.
No, you used to,
But I don't know why it sounds so aggressive.
no, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying.
I think just because the attack time.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
So again, we're hearing a direct signal.
No, you used to love me.
Now, here's where you can get creative. You don't have to only do compression or only do reverb or only do delay. You can actually blend in multiple effects in these aux channels. And again, the point of the aux channels is to give a variety to your mix. You can automate these faders. You don't have to have them on all the time. You could do really unique stuff. You're basically sound designing at this point. So let's say I want my original vocal plus the parallel, because the parallel compression, without the upward compression on the main vocals, parallel compression was used to add that density. Okay, so you have one sound that's kind of stable and another sound that's like moving like this. So you feel like there's more energy in the vocal.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it.
Now keep in mind, this dramatically adds energy to the vocal. So if this is a laid back track, we're not going crazy with the parallel compression and parallel saturation, because it will add more aggression to the track. The more saturation you add to a track, the more aggressive it will sound.
No, you used to love me.
So what I'm going to do to make the sound different is add some kind of chorusing or delay. Let's use Fruity Stereo Shaper. Actually, let's keep this waves. I keep forgetting we got to use wave stuff. Do we need waves? Yeah, let's use waves. And I think there's a plugin called, we just used it, called True Verb. Was that the one? True Verb? But Jason Joshua put me onto this technique, which is, I never thought to do stuff like this, which is to use only the early reflection. So earlier we used the reverb as a long tail reverb. Now what we're going to do is use the reverb as a very fast reflection, because when you speak into a microphone, for example, your voice goes in every direction, not just to the microphone. It goes that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. It goes every direction. And the sound comes back at it goes out at 340 meters per second, and it comes back at different speeds. And that's how you determine the size of a room. But long story short, there are walls closer to you, there are walls further away from you. So sound, basically, it's like what's a game? I guess like the game Snake, or if you guys ever played that Windows game on let me turn the limiter off the vocal because it's adding this delay. It's throwing me off. Check. So if you guys ever played that Windows game, like it was like a screensaver, and it kind of bounced off the wall, and it would bounce off this wall and bounce. Let me do it in full screen. So on Windows, it would boing, it bounces off each wall. So that's how physics of sound works. It bounces off of walls because it's what's called an elastic collision. I think that's the right word, elastic collision. Okay, so basically stuff bounces off of stuff. Okay, and if it bounces back into the direction of the microphone, that's called reflection. So sometimes you have reflections that are early reflections, meaning fast reflections off that wall. It just depends on where your mic is set up to, because you could have a wall next to you, but only a couple frequencies are technically going to come straight back into the mic, whereas most of them are going to bounce and go a different direction. So it just depends on where you're recording technically. But we call these things early reflections because they bounce off of a wall closest to you, come back into the mic. Okay. So that's different than if I spoke and it has to go back to the back of a church and then back into the mic. That's a very long distance. So the two are separate is my point. And we can combine these to create different reverb styles. What we're going to do though is turn off the reverb signal. This is the long tail reverb, and we're only going to use what's called early reflections. So this is going to push the sound to perceived back, because an early reflection is technically a delay in a very short amount of time. With diffusion on top of that, I don't know everything about a reverb, but it's basically a delay at a very small amount.
No, you used to love me.
So if I send this main vocal to this parallel compressor, it's adding more aggression, and then instead of that aggression being close up on the mic, I could push it to the back a little bit using early reflection. I know there's a lot to take in, but let's hear just the signal by itself.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. can feel it by the.
And here's the early reflection. Now too, you can use early reflections, but you have to keep in mind which preset you're using. These presets are all built off of different room distances. So I'm going to go to a drum room, which is a little bit tinier.
No, you.
And let's turn off the reverb. So if I turn the direct signal off,
No, you used to love me.
this is this is capturing the long distance of the vocal. Now we're going to go,
No, you.
so that's called the full reverb. Let's go to the early reflection.
You used to love me.
And this is that faster response.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying anything. I can feel it by the way you used to say.
So we can create perceived rooms doing this and perceived depth and width. So basically I'm just going to cycle through different styles of reverb. Usually speaking, when you guys use this technique, you want a smaller room. This isn't categorized by room size, however, so we got to figure out which one gives us a dope sound. Let's try Studio A.
No, you used to love me.
Sounds like a big
You
studio.
could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embrace me.
And now we have a decision to make. Do we want the original signal as a parallel? Basically, at this point, the direct signal becomes how much vocal do we want this to sit up front?
You used to love me.
And you could blend
You
it.
could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by.
And again, we want to hear the original vocal to blend this all in.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by.
So see how when I have the direct signal turned all the way up, it just competes with the main vocal?
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
So what we're going to do is turn down that direct signal because it's too competitive with the main vocal.
No, you used to love me.
And let the early reflections be the
You
main
could prove
signal
it
of this
without
channel.
even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So once you hear the effect, I like to pull it back until you can't hear it because then it's truly blended in. You can't really tell unless you guys want it to stand out.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch.
So let's just turn off this channel in whatever the proper English is. We're going to turn it all off.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me.
Here's with it on.
I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face.
Now in the real recording, we didn't even have that room reverb because it was recorded in such a pristine environment. But this allows us to create our own room without having to deal with all the flaws of recording in a room that's not treated. So this is basically adding back the humanness to a recording in a way.
No, you used to love me.
So you can pull it back to where it's super subtle.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could.
Now in this mix, this effect, you could barely tell. It's such a small piece of the puzzle, but it's there.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to tell.
Now let's get into the world of like different genres. Here's where I think it really starts to create a different genre. For example, if I wanted saturation, I could use FabFilter Saturn 2. I could use, I think, Spectre to saturation. You could use standard clip. You could use gold clip. Just whatever your favorite saturator is. Let's try, what was the one I just said that fast? FabFilter Saturn. Now, I like the song vocals more than drums and stuff because drums is harder to control. You got to do a lot of stuff, in my opinion. For vocals, you can get away with running it through Saturn. So is this my go-to? Not all the time, only for vocal stuff. We're going to left click and send the vocal over to Saturn. Now again, normally mixing, I would not add this stuff. I'm just teaching you guys how to create your own sound if this is what you wanted to do. Mixing is, half technical, half creative. It's part sound design, part technical. It's really all sound design, but so I don't want you guys taking this like it's gospel, like you have to do this. You don't have to do this. It's just a style.
No, you.
All right.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to
All right, but if your vocal needed that extra energy, sometimes saturation works, especially for hip hop. They're usually more up energy, higher energy. So now we're sending the vocal to another channel, another aux, and you could left click to turn this up and down the amount.
No, you used to love me.
So the saturation, the job really is to fill in the frequencies from the higher mids and up. That usually creates the aggression. Now for more boxy saturation, you want to address the lower frequencies of the vocal, like the fundamental frequency. So it gives you a graph in here. You could just add this little plus to add it. So let's say you don't, let me just change the crossover. So I only want to address the first and second harmonic, fundamental and the second harmonic. So we're going to go to this side and turn that off. Go to this side, and I'm going to make this aggressive so you guys can hear.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
So now she's like that.
No, you used to love.
So that's for more of a Tyler the Creator type of approach. If you're trying to get that like power of the people type of sound.
No, you used to love me.
Now if you're going for more of a shimmer, like a detail, then I would recommend you guys just focus on the higher frequencies. And they don't need to be super aggressive here. So let's turn the saturator on.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the.
See how it adds this like perception of air?
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way.
But I like to, this has so much nuance, it's almost hard to teach this. All right, so basically once you get it to where you want it, you could try messing with the mix level. This makes it so that it's not 100% saturation. Again, our goal is to try to blend in these effects so they sound like it just was natural.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me.
Now the thing about the saturation is that it stands out so much, it sounds like a separate thing.
No, you used.
And this is where you run into chain issues again. Why? Because we're adding frequencies that were never there. That's when you run into a lot of these vocal balancing issues.
No, you used to.
When the vocal doesn't sound like it's fitting into the beat.
No, you used to love.
For now, we're just going to turn it down.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar.
Now in this plugin, it can get more granular. You can actually go to the add modulation. I learned this from, I want to say Sage Audio, because I never would have thought to use this. I think it's the envelope generator. And we can set this little blue dot modulation over the mix level, but we have to turn it off first and then turn the envelope control to 100%.
No, you used.
So basically only when the vocal triggers will it be saturated.
No, you used.
If it goes past this threshold.
No, you.
Usually I would use this on drums, but
No, you.
so it's hard to show in this video because the vocals aren't going from like here to here, they're not belting. But if they were to belt and you want more aggression, you might set a threshold, and when that sound goes above that threshold, you add more saturation to fully get that aggressive sound. Her vocal on this one, again, is not aggressive, so saturation is really overkill in my opinion.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
It does add a little sheen.
I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna.
But it also adds conflicting low frequencies. So in this case, you have to really have the ear for the nuances. I could hear it. It's basically too much lows in here.
No, you used to love.
So let's cut out the lows before it goes to the saturator. That way we're not saturating part of the middle of her vocal.
You used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase.
There's still some of that it's still some of that like boxiness somewhere. So I got to figure out which frequency that is.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it.
All right, so that's that 600 hertz. So we need to cut even more.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. could feel it by the way you used to touch.
Now, even on this vocal, I didn't even pull up a de-esser yet. Now for this saturator, because we're adding so many frequencies around that zone, we're going to use this de-esser to tame some of that aggression.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
And this will just help tame some of those higher frequencies.
No, you used to love me. You could.
I forgot we're using wave stuff. Waves also has a de-esser. I forgot, my bad, y'all. I forgot we're doing the waves.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
So again, I'm showing you all these little things. Do you have to use all these? No. You can widen this. So for example, what I would do for my ear, I like to widen higher frequencies. So I'm going to use the Fruity Stereo Shaper and widen this with the delay.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the...
It's hard to hear, so let me solo this effect so you guys can really, really hear what I'm saying here. So here's, you know, the like straight up the middle.
Now
let's turn on the stereo shaper. Now it just sounds like this like enveloping sheen. It doesn't sound like this aggressive thing trying to fight the main vocal. So that's why I like to widen out highs, usually speaking. And then now we just got to judge how much effect versus how much original effect versus, man, I'm speaking so fast, my brain is going 100 miles an hour. Now we get to judge. Oh, y'all weren't seeing the screen, bruh. Oh my gosh, y'all were not seeing the screen. I guess you didn't really need to see the screen, but still. All right, here's the chain. I'm salty. All right, so here's the chain. My bad, y'all. I did not know y'all were staring at my forehead. How long were y'all staring at my forehead that whole time? Just me just looking at the screen. Bruh. Hold on, let me see the last thing I said. 15 minutes of just looking at me. Bruh, are you serious? Man. Okay, so so the reverb thing is the last thing you guys saw. I'm so sorry about that. Goodness gracious, man. You don't understand how defeating that feels as a teacher. All right, anyway, I guess I'll just kind of run through it. So in parallel, we have this EQ chopping out the majority of the vocal. We're left with the saturator. We're only using the right side here, so the left side's turned off. I've separated it in frequency, so we're only targeting the right side. Basically, we're going to click this plus icon, do an envelope generator. We're going to click this little blue dot, drag it to the mix level, turn the mix level down, and let me see if I can pull it. And this little slider has to be turned to 100%. So basically, the envelope controller, the envelope gate, is controlling the mix level. Meaning, anytime the vocal goes above a certain threshold,
no, you used to love me.
Does it kick in the saturator?
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way.
Now this will change depending on how much signal you send to the aux. So if you move that signal or the knob, look at me checking my stream deck now, like every 5 seconds. I cannot believe y'all were staring at my head the whole time, bruh. I guess they say mix with your ears, not with your eyes, right? So anyway, at least you got stuff described to you, but here's the technique though.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the...
So now only when that vocal goes above a certain threshold does it get saturated, and then we're running a de-esser
no, you used to love
to tame that high like density area around the S's, but it's more than just S, it's just harshness in general. And then we have the Fruity Stereo Shaper to widen out the highs. So here's what it sounds like soloed. Let me turn these off.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing.
So here's before.
I could feel it by the way you used to touch me.
Here's after.
I could feel it by the...
So I tend to blend that width with like a chorusy detune. It just depends on the style of song. but I normally widen those high frequencies to make them feel more enveloping. There's no wrong or right way to do it. It's just a style that I use. All right, so we have a delay.
No, you used to let
We have the reverb channel. We have the parallel compression slash reverb
no,
you on early reflections mode. So we're pushing those reflections back. Okay. And we also have a Renaissance X compressing that
no, you used to
parallel signal to add more harmonics, subtle harmonics, but more harmonics. And then we're pushing that back with the true verb.
no, you used to let
So we're just adding dimensions. We have delay adding a left and right dimension. We have the reverb adding the forward dimension, and then we have the parallel compression adding the density, but also the forwardness using that reverb. And then we have the parallel saturation adding the ups and the enveloping of the shine. So we have left, right, forward, and then we have up surrounding. So we're creating dimension in all these different parameters here.
no, you used to love me.
And now we get to just either turn this stuff up or turn it down. Just depends on how you guys feel.
No, you used to love me.
Sometimes your effects though can get too overwhelming and it can drown out your original vocal.
No, you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you
So if you want more of a dry vocal, turn the effects down. If you want more of a blended vocal,
no, you used
turn
to
it back up.
love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me. Now you wanna erase me. A familiar face. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Slowly fading away. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you tell me what changed? Was it me? Was it you? Was it? I know you used to love me. You could prove it without even saying a thing. I could feel it by the way you used to touch me. I could feel it by the way that you embraced me.
Now again, when we add that limiter, we're pulling up more of that low frequency. So you really have to go back and forth. Like I said, guys, when you add more compressors and more compressors, that's when the problems occur with the vocal. So for now, I'm going to turn off the limiter just because it adds a delay to this session. But that's how I would mix that vocal, and then I would mix everything around the vocal, and then I would just tie everything together with mastering. So I don't want to make that like a 10-year lesson on that track specifically. But for the most part, you guys learned about the power of compression, EQ, limiting, modulation, delay, how to modulate the delay, reverb, how to modulate the reverb. You learn parallel compression. You learn about saturation, how that gets used. We kind of talked about width, but we didn't go that deep. Now let's open up another session from Logic Pro. And this is my recording of my voice. So let me load this up. So we're going to load up the one where we are doing the, let's do the background vocal one. Because some people ask me how to mix background vocals. In the meantime, as we load this, any questions on the chat? Forgive me, y'all. I cannot believe for 15 minutes. Oh, man, that's crazy. 15 minutes of just me staring at a screen. Bro, I'm so sorry about that. In the edit, I'm going to have to cut this out. So if you want the full course, go to busyworksbeats.com/black. Okay, guys, get the black box bundle. It's every course we've ever created, 80 plus courses on vocal mixing, music production, mixing, mastering, sound design, music business. What else even is there to teach? Music theory. So it literally is everything I've ever taught, plus 4,000 sounds for those who are beat makers specifically. So let's open up the Logic Pro here. Now Logic Pro to my ear has a much cleaner tone without doing too much. So if you want a cleaner tone in general, I'd recommend you guys, if you're on Mac, just go with Logic Pro. It's such a clean sound, even if you don't do too much to your sound. So we have West Coast G-Funk. I think this is the one. Give me a sec, y'all. I just got to load up a Logic session. All right, here it is. Check. We got two mics. Okay, boom. All right. Let's get out of FL. I know you guys can't see the screen. Just give me a second. I'm paranoid now. I'm going to my Stream Deck every 3 seconds, pressing that button. Okay.
Cruising down the
Some of you may have heard this. Some people may have not. Have.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So first, let's address how this was recorded. I recorded in that booth that you guys saw earlier. And let me turn this up a little bit. I can't even hear myself. So I recorded well, now it's too loud. So I recorded in the booth behind me to the right. And it was just a clean take to begin. Now, is it a perfect take? No, you can hear the air vent sometimes.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So notice how I panned it to the left and it sounded louder.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah.
So sometimes to get loudness, you don't need to do stuff. You just need to move it around. That's just the nature of like soloing sounds.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking.
So here's what it sounds like without the gate on it.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
All right, so this is me breathing and then the of the beat because I'm using closed back headphones. Pretty clean, not too much to edit out. Now again, most people they don't record well, so they'll have like boxy tones. They'll be up against the wall recording in their closet with no treatment on. This makes it worse, or just a bunch of stuff people do, and they just don't get the best takes. So firstly, before you get into vocal mixing, you have to understand that recording a good take is almost mandatory. Now, I've seen some people work magic on TikTok, but for the majority of you guys, you got to start with the better recording. You can't put in crappy stuff and expect gold. It's just not going to happen. All right. So what we're going to do though, for this, I recorded one take one way, another take another way, subtly different.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
Now this one I'm a little more airy and I'm more vibrato-y, like la la la. Like I can't even do it now, but la la la. Like I'm doing a little vibrato at the end.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that.
And now when you combine those two, you have subtle differences, the same way we had subtle differences with the guitar earlier.
That fire, yeah, yeah.
So just simply panning one left, one right, they're going to create this super wide sound because width is when you have the difference between your left and your right ear.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So literally I didn't add anything but a gate plugin just to take out some of the background noise. I put this on vocal mode, vocal all around. That usually handles vocal background noise pretty well. We didn't use Waves NS1. And then we're running to what is this? Bus 7 has a hall reverb on it. Just very subtly though.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah.
And then I have a third take. So it's left, center, middle.
I just want some.
Now some of these I'm exaggerating the words more.
Some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
And I'm like la la la. Like I'm holding notes a little bit differently. So these are all little differences. And when you combine them, they create this bigger picture. Now, something that people may not have noticed about this take is I have another take where I'm just breathing. Now I added a bunch of effects like chorus and tape delay. But I'm like, like that. I'm creating like an impact sound. So all this combined creates.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
Now without that little breath.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
And then here I did more of an ad-lib approach.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that.
Just listen to how like do stop. Boom, 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 pause. Boom, boom. Like it just stops. So I needed something that kept going. And that's what the breath is for. It just keeps the beat going.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So basically, the only thing I added here technically is a Pro Gate, a Pro G. But in reality, when it comes to mixing, I mean, all these things that I'm doing are just creative effects. It's not some kind of like thing that I'm doing. Okay, now the channel EQ, it looks like I did do a group EQ just to cut out the lows.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want.
Because there were some plosives. I don't know if you guys can hear, but it's like cruising down the.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just
So sometimes like it's like this like rumble. So that's why I added this in. There was just some stuff that I couldn't hear, whether it was me moving the mic stand or me hitting something or my voice just going really deep. It just needed to be clean because these weren't the main vocals. And that's why I added that EQ. So, and also too, we're hearing this stuff through master.
just want some that fire.
Let's turn this off. Let me get rid of all the stuff that we're not doing. And boom, let's turn this off. So now we hear it.
Fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
Now we hear the regular volume.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5.
It's like, what is there to mix? There's really not much to mix. That's why I said you guys got to know when to stop mixing vocals. I'm not like saying it against you guys, like you don't know what you're doing, but I think people tend to put so much focus on the vocal, not real. Like everything is the beat to me. Like I said earlier, Michael Jackson, I forget which song it was, whatever song that is. I want to say Billie Jean or one of them. One of his like one of those hits. If you listen to his vocal, it's like super tucked. The beat is the main thing. Doom 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 doom. Billie Jean is not my love. I'm pretty sure that's Billie Jean. Yeah. And if you listen to the mix though, his vocals are like down here, drums are up here, bass is up here. Like, so listen to stuff as a performance. What am I trying to say? Listen to the entire thing. Vocals are not always the main star. I know they say this in pop music and everything, but if you look at the real hit song from Michael Jackson, like I said, classic for classic for classic for classic for classic for years and years and years, the vocal's not the main thing. You guys know the melody, yeah, but the vocal's not the main thing in the mix. I mean,
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah.
I guess there's nothing really to show you guys on this one as much as I thought.
Cruising down the 4-5.
Outside of the, I guess the mastering chain is interesting. Was that the mastering chain? Oh, I have a submix called Total Mix. Okay, so I used Gold Clip.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah,
Just adding a little punch to the drums.
some that la la.
The main thing doing the heavy work though is MD4. It's too much to explain in this video. I'm just going to give you guys the bullet points. I'm using a mid-side compressor. And this compressor basically is targeting the mid signal to compress.
Cruising down.
So it makes the sides feel wider just because the middle signal is being turned down. So it makes the sides feel wider. And then I'm boosting the side image. So remember, the side is the difference between the left and the right. Okay. So what I'm doing is just exaggerating that difference by turning this knob up. So it makes stuff feel wider basically.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
And like I said, because the main vocal is not the main thing, it's the background vocals being wide is the main thing to give that attitude of this performance. So the width is actually more important than the center image on this one. So that's why I'm boosting the sides, because that's where it's almost like a Reese bass, how it lives on the side. It's not just a centered image.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la.
And then I ran it through the limiter, soft clipper at the end here.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah.
So from there, I'm adding my favorite thing in Logic Pro, which is an expander. The expander on soft clip mode just adds so much hardness to the beat.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking.
So you can push it too hard if you have too many stages of soft clipping before that. And lastly, we just have Pro L2 to capture the peak.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
Now, the reason the vocals aren't clashing with the instruments is because the vocals are not competing in the center. They're on the side. And most of the instruments that have that boominess to them are dead center, like the bass.
Down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So the bass didn't kick in yet.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la.
Now it is a bit crunchy of a mix because I wanted that West Coast knock. Now if we wanted to pull back on the sound, we would just pull off the soft clipping of the expander.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising.
I guess the lesson for this track is like the vocals aren't even being really processed. I'm just adding a gate to them and I'm adding a simple EQ to take out the lows. They're not being processed with RVox, RComp. It's not 1,000 things going on because the vocal take was good to begin with. And I think that's my lesson for everybody trying to get better at vocal mixing. If the vocals suck being recorded, they're going to suck. You're going to make them suck even more trying to mix it to sound good. Unless you're a wizard with the stuff, then you could do anything. But if you're just the average person, and including myself, I'm not acting like I could just turn crap into sugar. But I've seen it happen on TikTok. There's like this wizard guy who turns crappy recordings into stuff that sounds crazy, using Melodyne and stuff. But I guess the gist of it is record better. Okay. Invest, instead of trying to buy 1,000 plugins to make your vocals better, just buy a vocal booth like the GIK portable isolation booth. You could actually collapse these. And I already showed you guys earlier, but that's what you should save up for, not 1,000 plugins.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5.
So here's the mix without the expander soft clip mode on, and then I'll turn the soft clip back on just to show you guys how much energy it adds.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5.
Let me show you guys a little hack. So let's say for this vocal, everything's very wide and it becomes kind of blurry after a certain point.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some.
So to get rid of the blur, one thing you could do is use a mid-side EQ, for example, or any tool that has mid-side functions. Go to the side mode, and we want to separate the lows from the low mids, from the mids from the highs. The way we're going to do this is just use somewhere around like 200 or 400. I'm going to boost it so you guys can actually hear what's happening. I learned this from the SSL Fusion because when I had the SSL Fusion, basically they have this knob called like dimension or depth or something like that. And all it's doing is just going to the side image and turning up like 200 hertz. That's all it's doing.
Cruising down the 4-5.
So I'm going to exaggerate what I'm talking about. So here, well, it's a little too exaggerative.
Cruising down the 4-5.
It adds like this, but on the side image.
Cruising down the 4-5.
So it adds this like enveloping warmth.
Cruising down the 4-5.
So what we're going to do is do the opposite. Instead of boosting, we're going to cut this so that our ear can hear the difference in the fundamentals. Because a lot of fundamentals stack up around 200 to 300
Cruising
hertz.
down the 4-5. I just want some that fire.
So I would just sweep. It depends on the song.
Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire.
So now our ear can distinguish the difference. Masking or blurriness is when our ear is trying to define something that's fighting for the same space. So if you can't, it's almost like people wearing the same clothes. You're like, is that? But they also have the same skin and the same type of face. You're like, I can't tell who's who. But when they change their clothes, you're like, oh, that's Tommy and that's Ted or whatever. So I don't know if that was the greatest analogy, but basically we are separating the zones so they're not dressed the same.
Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some.
So I'll play it before and after. It's a very small difference, but it opens up clarity, what people call clarity.
Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5. I just
try to find that zone where the vocals overlap the instruments.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah.
So now we can go back and add just details. These aren't mandatory. So for example, when I'm mixing a lot of vocals, I tend to go really light on compression. Let's use the Waves. What's this thing called? R-Comp. Use R-Comp. Why is this looks different than the other one, didn't? No, I guess it's the same. Man, so much to teach, such a short amount of time. So basically, I don't normally run a bunch of vocals through the one compressor, unless it's like a group of vocals or something, or like the final mix. Simply because they're going to all react to the compressor differently, and it will make the compressor be like, I don't know which one is which, and it just gets confused. So here, let's add a very subtle amount compression.
I just want some that fire.
I'm going to exaggerate this actually. Now, the more compression we add, the more uniform the signal becomes. So if you add compression to a group, what you're actually doing is making stuff the same. So what makes this vocal sound so wide is because you have differences between the left and the right. So okay, you have skins on here. I didn't know they had that. So I'm going to the legacy skin. This is the skin I'm familiar with. So basically what I'm saying here is that when we add compression to a group of vocals, they become more of the same. You have the more volume being the same and the more tuning being the same, and everything becomes the same, and then you actually lose width and it becomes centered. So that's why some people tell you not to compress vocals as a group heavily, because then everything just becomes uniform and the same. It's almost like adding auto-tune to an entire group of vocals, even though you can't technically do it. But if everything sounds the same and it pitch slides the same, it just sounds like the same thing.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking.
So we're purposely adding this uniformness so that stuff can be a little more centered every now and again.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
But again, what gives it that openness and bounciness is the fact that everything's different. So I'm trying to barely touch this.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la.
Let's see what a limiter would sound like. Personally, I would just turn up the volume. I wouldn't reach for a limiter here, but I just want to see what it sounds like.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah.
So what I'm trying to get out of the vocal now is this energy. I'm pushing these different things like compressors and limiters to see how much energy I could pull out of the vocal without it feeling like it's just too aggressive in this track. But let's do one thing before we start using limiters and all this. Let's just go back to the basic thing, which is to switch the soft clip mode on.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire.
See how much energy that adds? Just that one thing.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah.
So we are adding almost like a harsh amount of aggression, but because that's the attitude of the track, it just blends right in. Normally I wouldn't push the vocals this hard. So if I mute the...
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire.
You can hear like a zzz on the vocal. And it's a little in that area where I normally don't saturate that much because it sounds too harsh on the ear. Not harsh in terms of like S, but harsh in the terms of the energy is just a strong energy.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that.
So that one setting, this setting,
Cruising down the 4-5,
makes a huge
I
difference.
just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la.
So if you don't want that many harmonics, you need to go back to the vocal and control the amount of harmonics you want, whether it's compression or saturation.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5.
To my ear, you know, I'm very bass heavy of a voice, so it's almost too bass heavy on the side. So I need to figure out where is that bass heaviness happening. Is it in the mid or the side? So first I'm going to pull up the side EQ.
Cruising down the 4-5.
And I think it's on the side EQ. So I'm going to boost it so I can hear it and try to figure out that one frequency. Pretty sure it's just this area.
Cruising down the 4-5.
That's hurting my ear, so let's turn it down.
Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire.
So we're not trying to like thin out the vocal. It's just literally just too much energy right here.
Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la.
See if we can add this 48 dB per octave cut here somewhere. I see a couple lower frequencies.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that.
I got to be careful with these type of cuts though, because on my vocals, depending on how low of an octave I sing, I could be cutting out the essence of my voice. So for me, I can't just slap on a high pass filter like everybody else can. It just depends on the vocal.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la.
So here's before. Let me see what I could do. Let's turn the saturation on.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire.
Now we got rid of that aggressive, like that was kind of like too much energy in our ear. Okay, so now we can blend this. Let's hear what it sounds like with the drums.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the.
Now creatively, I think this vocal needs more like reverbs and throws and different things. We don't have time to be sitting here mixing from like absolute scratch. I think I have never mind. Let's add let's do tape delay. It's one of my favorite plugins in Logic. I'm going to move a little bit quicker here, guys, because this is just, it's all creative. So we're going to do full range. We're going to do a stereo spread delay, left and right, ping pong, ping pong. And we're going to send the vocal as a group over to that delay. Now, I don't know how to modulate inside of Logic. I'm sure there's a way, I just don't know the shortcuts for it. In terms of the modulation we did with FL.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire.
All right, so that's where that technique falls apart, is on that second part, where the vocals come in more aggressive. And then when you hit that soft clipper on the expander, it's too much saturation no matter how much EQ we do. That's why I said you got to understand each level of mixing. It's not just EQ, not just compression, not just saturation. But when you focus on harmonics, it all makes more sense though.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire.
Now we have to make it to where this, what is this? Which EQ is this? This second EQ is turned on in the beginning and then turned down in the second half, because these vocals are completely different in terms of energy. So normally I would have to automate this with some kind of, modulate this with some kind of automation. Now I don't know how to do this off top. So let's see, channel EQ2, we need to control the on and off switch. So what would that be? Where's the on and off switch? Is there a bypass filter? So I don't see any bypass parameters on this. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I don't see where that would be. So it's not obvious. So what I would have to do in this case, since I don't know, I would have to cut these into different pieces and then move them to a different channel. But I'm just telling you guys what I would do. I would just turn this EQ off, basically. This first EQ.
Cruising down the 4-5, smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5.
So I'll just manually do it.
I just want
Let me see if I can record this.
Smoking on some that la la la.
Here's where we're gonna turn it off.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la.
So I think I recorded automation. I don't even know if it worked. Let's see if it worked.
Down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5.
Alright, looks like it worked.
I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5. I just want some that fire. Smoking on some that la la la.
All right, so that worked the way I thought. Now, the last, I guess, creative thing I could think of is for the vocals. I'm going to send it as a bus, and this is going to be a creative aux. So I'm thinking to add an EQ. We're going to chisel out the high frequencies only by chiseling out the lows, basically just high pass filter. And we're going to send it over there. And then what I want to do is compress it heavily. So let's try waves R, what was it? X. Okay, we're going to use the Renaissance X. We're going to compress it pretty heavily. Funny enough, RVox might give us more of an aggressive sound. Let's try RVox actually. And we're going to compress the signal. So we're taking the vocals, we're soloing the high frequencies, we're compressing the stuff out of the high frequencies, and then we're going to run it through a reverb of some sort. So we're adding that dimension. And oh, you know what I wanted actually? Let's use RComp, because I want to try to do expansion is what I was getting into today. So now let's expand the vocal. We're going to wait about 40 milliseconds. So it's going to be like, I just, I'm exaggerating because it happens way faster than this. But when the vocal goes, it'll be like, it's going to turn up the tail end of a sound. So it's like, I don't know how to explain it with my voice, but we're boosting the body of the sound only in the high frequencies. Okay, so think of it that way. And what else do I want to do? Add reverb. Let's try true verb. True. And let's do the same early reflections technique. Now we can mess with the reverb in this case because this is an experimental channel here. All right, so let's solo one vocal because it's kind of hard to tell with the group.
Cruising down the 4-5, I just want some that fire.
Now I'm gonna adjust the EQ.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
And I'm gonna exaggerate the highs.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire.
We definitely need a de-esser going into the compressor. So I'm gonna add a bars, right? De-esser going into the compressor. Is it de-esser 2? I always mix these up. There's like 1,000 de-essers out there. So we're gonna try to pull up Waves de-esser. I think this is the one.
Cruising down the 4-5.
Now it has different settings depending on where the S would be.
Cruising down the.
I think we can monitor the side chain, can't we?
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So we're just trying to tame it so it's not super like resonant-y. And then we're going through the
Cruising down
expander.
the 4.
We need to set the
Cruising
threshold.
down the 4-5, yeah, yeah.
Now the release is going to be, you know, basically it's like bump, and then we're adding another. It's like bump, and then we're adding another bump, and then we have to determine the curvature of it with the attack and
Cruising
release.
down the 4-5, yeah.
I'll exaggerate with the
Cruising
release.
down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la.
So what I'm trying to create is like a wall of height to the vocal.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
Is there a fast way to route this? So we have bus 5. Wait, where's the bus going? Hold on. Let me figure out what bus this group is in. I think it's bus 5. Yeah, vocals. All right, so that's grouped. Let me try no stereo output. So we should only hear the effects.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah.
So here's the effect we're adding.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah.
Now I can shape just this effect.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
Again, my goal is just to add a wall of high frequencies.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want
Then we
some
could add some kind of stereo directional tool. Let's try this to widen out the highs a little bit.
cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah.
Let's do a
I just want some
split.
that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
It's just going to thin out the highs a little bit.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire.
It could use a little more EQ to my ear. Let's add EQ 2 or EQ 3.
Cruising down the 4-5.
Just got to figure out where the frequencies I don't like are.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some
I
that.
think it's here.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's an annoying resonance there. Let's negative.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la.
Another kind of weird resonance there.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that.
Not mad at that one.
Smoking on some that la la la.
So now this is a matter of the room, the type of room.
Cruising down
So let's go through the settings here.
yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking
So this room has much more of a longer tail, but I do like the brightness of it.
cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So I do like that sheen of it though. So again, every room's different. Now let's send this back to the vocal bus.
Cruising down.
And let's hope we can get the vocals back. Wow. Oh, that's not the vocal bus. My bad. Total mix is what I meant to send it to.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah, yeah. I just want some.
Oh my God. This reminded me of a random story. I was learning how to record from Rondi Silvestro. Oh, thank you, Varun, for your super chat. How to make kicks knock like yours. This video is about vocal mixing, but you could try a plugin called Standard Clip that can actually add pretty much of a knock for you. Quick story is I was learning how to record with Rondi Silvestro in what was that studio called? Forge Recording Studio. And we weren't in the A room, we weren't in the B room, we were in the practice room, and he set up this like this area where, you know, normally a band would come in on like Fridays or something and just practice before they came to record, because when you record you're on paid time, so it's like you got to practice first. So bands usually pull up, go to the practice room, set up shop. There's like a PA system and a little mixer and maybe a couple amps here and there. Kind of forgot what was in the room. And Ron thought it was a good idea to let us just, you know, practice setting up mics in that room. And he showed us signal flow, you know, how to take the snake out the wall, plug in the XLR cable and put this into the mic and, you know, have that run to the mixer and all types of stuff. So he showed us how to do all the signal flow stuff. And he's like, all right, guys, you practice in this room and I'll be right back. I think he went to go get lunch or he went to the bathroom or something. So we were in there. It was me, Justin, and some kid named, I forgot the other kid's name. And so we were setting up the mixer. Everybody was chilling. Now somebody turned on the PA system and it was loud, but we couldn't tell because there was no sound coming through the PA system. And then you hear like somebody click the mic in. It's like click. And then you hear a sound that you just don't want to hear. It's like, and it just was like this crazy feedback. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh shoot. And I just ran out the room. There's nothing worse than getting feedback. I don't know who eventually turned it off, who had the balls to turn it off. It was so loud because nobody knew how to turn the PA system down. So it's just this microphone hearing itself through the PA system. And the PA system was on blast because the band from whoever was practicing before us had that thing on blast. And oh my God, it was the worst sound ever. Hopefully we didn't blow any speakers. But that was like, I ran out of that room so fast, yo. Story over. Okay, back to reality here. So
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah.
So hopefully you guys understand that concept. You could really, this is where we get into sound design. There's no right or wrong anything. It's just me pushing a sound, trying to create a texture for it. Let's unlock these.
Cruising the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah.
So then we just push it until it gets to, I'm going to exaggerate so you guys can hear.
Cruising down.
So you can hear that reverb.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So now we're blending it into where you can't even tell it's there, but it does add that.
Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la. Cruising down the 4-5, yeah. I just want some that fire, yeah. Smoking on some that la la la.
So for that one, I turned down the effects. This is where you would have to automate the send levels, because when I'm doing more of the energy, it's like cruising down the full, cruising down the full. The delay is too strong. Whereas before it was like cruising down the full, cruising down the full. It was soft. So the delay wasn't offensive. When you get into more energy behind that vocal, then it's like you want to turn that delay way down. So that's where automation comes into play. Let's move into one more session where I think I did rap vocals, demo vocals, nothing crazy, in the style of like Jay-Z, I think. Let me find that project. So we were chopping samples up in our new sample science course at busyworksbeats.com/premium. And let me, hold on, y'all, I can't see my, cases. Oh, we got double mics going on. Double mics going on. Let me turn this mic off. All right, check. Learn my lesson. Always check the stream deck. Always check the stream deck. Always check the stream deck. All right, so now we're back in FL. So again, this is a bit of a hack session because this wasn't meant to be a super pristine session. It was just me freestyling in the booth. I basically have a lead vocal. I did punch-ins, so it's basically lead vocals. I think these are the lead vocals. And then I have harmony at vocals in threes. So left, right, center, same recording technique.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. Around the world, around the world. Around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame.
This is no plugins, by the way. So we're gonna start fresh. All right. So the only thing that needs addressing is just the dynamic. So it's like,
The freshest in.
I'm like,
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs.
like it's like da, 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 like that. So the volume changes very dramatically. Now we can just leave it as is and just call it the genre. There's no right or wrong thing to do. We could also compress it, but the problem that happens when you compress, which we talked about before, is now you're introducing more frequencies that were never there, and then it ultimately reshapes your entire tone. So this is where people have that constant battle with the vocal. It's because originally your vocal probably didn't have all these frequencies in.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to.
So let's compress this a little bit.
The freshest.
And all we're trying to do is freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's like trying to turn those accent notes down a little bit.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs.
I usually have a fast release for hip hop stuff.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs.
So now let's use another R comp. Now you could use MV2. I'm not sure the envelope they use though. It doesn't say. But we're going to use R comp because I just found out it has the expansion mode. So basically MV2 is just expanding, doing upward compression.
The freshest.
We could do the same thing here.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs.
The only thing is you have to set your own attack and release. So this is kind of, you got to do it by ear really.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a.
So the attack at the lowest would be like immediately turning the volume up.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs. Then we took.
Similar to a transient shaper, but just different in the way that it handles volume. A transient shaper is extending the peak of a sound by turning up the decay of the sound. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. It's instead of it going like freshest in all the 4 barrels, it'll be like the freshest in all the 4 barrels instead of the freshest in all the 4 barrels. A transient designer is trying to take that peak and extend it longer. Okay, so we're trying to do the same thing here. We could start with a faster attack just so we could hear what it's picking up on.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs.
And then we get up the attack a little bit.
Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. Around the freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs.
So listen to it without and with the expansion.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs.
Now we can hear that vocal. It's like the freshest in all the 4 boroughs. You can hear the words, whereas before it is, you know, clamping down on the transients, but the overall volume is too low. It's not above the beat.
The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the 4 boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your 4 boroughs. Throwing a rock in 4 boroughs. Then we took over the whole world.
And then we can run into, we can make it all more linear with another compressor. So basically the first compressor is taking care of the peaks, knocking those peaks down. The second compressor is actually upward compression, pulling up the body of the sound. The third compressor is used for the overall tone. So we can run it through RVox, for example, something where it adds harmonics.
The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the.
So let's listen to it without the expansion step. I'll just turn it on and off. Here's before.
The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world.
So the first take is like, the freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Even with the compression. But the second take's like, the freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. It doesn't feel like I'm backing up and forth from the microphone because it's keeping the volume more consistent from peak to the body of the sound. So that's one step that nobody really talks about is expansion on a vocal. Think of it like transient designing in a way. From here, I mean, what else is there to do but take out tones we might not like on the vocal? So
the freshest in all the four boroughs.
There's like a metallic tone somewhere in here. Probably 600 hertz. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Throwing a rock.
Now we can set this to dynamic mode, meaning that it doesn't offend us until it gets to a loudness. But to me, I don't like the tone at all. So I'm not waiting for it to get loud enough. I'm just taking out the tone.
The freshest in all the. Got to connect your four boroughs.
Also, whenever you cut something, look for the harmonics, the multiples of that sound. So for example, this is at 550 hertz about. We want to look at 550 hertz times 2 times 3. So if you times it by 3, I don't know the math on that. Roughly, what is that, 150 plus 1500? So that should be 1650 somewhere. I don't know if I did the math right. Okay. So it should be around 1600, but I found something at 1800. Here's the culprit right at the math. It's math is math is math, right? So it's right exactly where we calculated. So this, I'm going to pull that kind of telephonic sound out. I don't think it really adds much to this.
The freshest in. I got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four.
Let's do it before and after.
The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs.
So now that vocal's sitting on top of that beat without it like slamming through a limiter. So again, limiters have their purpose. Every genre does not need the same thing though. And you got to learn when to technically do something versus creatively fit a genre type. So I'm going to add a limiter just to see what it sounds like.
The freshest in all the four boroughs.
But I already feel like we've achieved the goal, which is have that vocal just heard over the beat.
The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs.
Like this is just too much energy for this vocal.
The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four.
So like, yes, technically it sits on top of the beat and it's clear and everything, but that energy doesn't match the beat. So that solution does work sometimes, not all the time. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Know when to walk away from Pro L2. I don't know the lyrics on that. But just keep that in mind when you guys are mixing vocals. Again, I never try to teach nevers and always because everything is situational. These are just tactics you guys can pull from. So limiter not mandatory. Again, we achieved our goal. Have it sit on top of the beat.
The freshest in all the four.
Now at this point, you got to mix everything. So now this beat is one of those things where if you overly mix it, you actually kill the vibe. So I already have a chain here. Let's hear what it sounds like.
The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. That's that. Got to connect your four boroughs.
So the mixing, the mastering does tighten it up a little bit. Let's hear the around the world part.
Around the world, around the world.
Now this is supposed to have that like non-auto-tune 90s vibe. So if we just compress everything and make it sound like we want everything to be the same, it kills the whole vibe of this like bounce. So let's see, what would we do to these background vocals? I would not do much, but let's figure out what would we do if we were to have to mix these. Again, sometimes the answer is nothing. Now these don't even have vocal gates on them.
Around the world, around the world, around the world, around the world. Huh.
Now technically I could cut more of the in-between space around it because that is adding to the total picture of the song. So that would definitely need to be addressed because you don't want to have all this background stuff that does not need to be in a song. This is mix prep, however, not how to mix vocals, but this is definitely part of stuff you guys want to take care of, is all this in-between junk that you don't need. Sometimes you do need the in-between junk because it adds an airiness to your vocal. It just depends. Like I said, there's no every and always and nevers. If you hear somebody say never do this, they probably haven't had enough experience really. All right, so let's cut these out. So now we won't hear all that.
Around the world, around the world. Huh.
See how the huh was just like huh, and then it cut off.
Around the world, around the world, around the world. Huh.
It needs that huh, that breath after. So sometimes you don't always want to cut just because there's little things. And again, I can't really go over everything, but I will tell you guys that sometimes you want that in between breath and the leading up to sounds. You don't always want to cut everything just because it's not visible.
Around the world, around the world, around the world.
Now for this, I mean, if anything, I might add like a mid-side compressor. I'm not sure Waves has a mid-side compressor. What we could do though is in FL Studio, we can open up a plugin called Patcher. We're getting really geeky here, so put your geeky hats on. Open up Patcher. We're gonna right click here, add a plugin called the Fruity Stereo Shaper. We're gonna right click here, double click, sorry. And then right click the presets, go to mixing, mid A side splitter. So now this number is the stereo output. So we're gonna right click here, go to outputs, audio, send number 2 is the stereo output. So by default, it's going to go out to mono and the other channel goes to stereo. So we just want to compress, what did I say, the mono signal. So let's add a plugin in here. I know we're getting geeky. Just bear with me. And we're going to load up the Waves shell if I can open it up. And let's open up just RVox, something simple. We don't need any complicated plugins here. RComp tends to do the job. Now, where is RComp? Where'd it go? Can we load up Waves in here? Maybe we can't load Waves plugins in here. That's weird. Never saw that before. Oh, here it is. Okay. So let's left click and drag the mono signal to the compressor.
Around the world.
So I'm going to listen to the mono signal here.
Around the world, around the world.
Now mono is already the similarities between the left and the right. That's why I'm addressing the mono and not the side. The side is the difference between the left and the right. So if I compress the differences between the left and the right, they become more of the same because they're the same volume. and you have more chances of stuff being the same, which adds more density or adds more centeredness to it. So I'm addressing the center image because it's already the same between left and the right.
Around the world, around the world, around the world. Around the world, around the world, around the world.
Let's pull
Around the world,
release down.
around the world, around the world.
Now, if we pull the attack down, we're also going to get more saturation.
Around the world, around the world, around the world.
Now let's hear this with the stereo output.
Around the world, around the world, around the world.
What's that noise? Damn, my mic is loud. What happened here? Oh, waves in us that whole time? I didn't notice that. Was that there before? I remember hearing that buzzy noise. Sorry if that buzzy noise was there.
Around the world, around the world, around the world. Huh.
So now we're just taming that.
Around the world, around the world.
It just feels a little more glued together and less like.
Around the world, around the world.
Here's the, let's just play it before and after. Here's before.
Around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame. Around the world, around the world.
And now let's
You know I did it in my
turn the
own
effect
lane
back on.
with my own flame. Around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame. Around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame. Around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame. Around the world, around the world.
All right, so we can also do the same technique we did before. Let me see if we can copy. I don't know if it copied it or not. I can't tell. Let's disconnect. I think this is okay. So now let's move into expansion. So I'm doing the same thing that we did with the lead vocal, but on the side, the background.
Around the world, around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame. Around the world, around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame. Around the world, around the world, around the world.
So my screen's glitching out a little bit. I think Patrick.
Around the world, around the world, around the world. Around the world, around the world, around the world. Around the world, around the world, around the world. You know I did it in around the world, around the world. You know I did it around the world, around the world.
So again, remember we're targeting the mid signal, middle.
Around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane. Around the world, around the world. You know I did it in around the world, around the world. Around the world, around the world.
So now we gotta just debate: do we like the original sonic image or do we like the post?
Around the world, around the world. Around the world, around the world. You know I.
So the second time around, it's just more audible over the track, but sometimes you don't want that. So it just depends. There's no right or wrong thing to do. Everything does not need to be clear, because to get contrast, you have to have difference. So, you know, I'm trying to teach you guys tactics, and I don't want to preach this as like you have to do these things, because again, sometimes the sonic image supersedes clarity. Sometimes the mystery supersedes pristineness. You know, like everything does not need to be super clean all the time.
The freshest in all the four boroughs. Just got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. Around the world, around the world. The freshest in all the four boroughs. Just got to connect your four boroughs. Throwing a rock in four boroughs. Then we took over the whole world. Around the world, around the world. You know I did it in my own lane with my own flame. Played the rock like I play my own game. Feeling like Rich Porter, New York by the water, ice cold, need a sauna. If you touch it, you a goner. You already know the name. Dipset is the game. Hopping out Bentleys with 10 chains.
Now, when that vocal got more aggressive, it needs more de-essing. So I would treat that like a separate verse. So when I got more aggressive with the words, it definitely had more energy in the high mids, and that needs to be de-essed. So that'd be the final touch. I'm not gonna do it here because it's gonna bore you guys to tears. But that would be the final touch. Let me open up a new project. Give me a sec. Woo. Dang, I gotta reload this, y'all. With dang, I gotta go through all these steps just to pull up NS1. NS1. So if your mic, I'm glad that happened though. So if your mic is like mine that has that crazy buzz on it, you can add NS1 that gets rid of that. I learned that from Baines, who was Young Thug's engineer. He was on Clubhouse giving out tips, and he said one time somebody was recording with Young Thug and they were talking in the background, and he couldn't figure out how to like get them out of the background, so he used the NS1 to get them out the background. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I want to quickly answer questions. Hold up. Come on, Betsy. Man, FL needs to let you just click from a drop down. All these little buffer sizes. I'm trying to get to 80, and it's like every number but 85, 77. Anyway. All right, so let's pull up one more session here because I have a vocal I did in Logic. I want to pull that up. So if you have any questions, I'm going to answer them real fast. You got good tone on your voice. Thank you. Appreciate you. Sounds a little like Snoop Dogg. The whole audio is coming hot. Yes. So I don't know what part. This is probably from hours ago you guys are commenting on. Gene T is here. What up? MH is here. We got Monkey D Blasphemy. Link Bruh says, yo, busy. Thank you. MH is here. Ma Duke says, you the GOAT. Thank you. Mr. All-Rounder says, can we know how to make kicks knock? Again, Standard Clip is a pretty good plugin for you. You'd have to buy it though. Or you could use FL Studio. The Fruity Limiter has a saturator built in. You just have to turn the knob to the left. But it's a very specific sound though. Sing Dream Fiend. You said what kick was this? Sorry, I don't know what session you're referring to. My bad. Link Bruh says we really learn to listen with our ears. Oh man, that's funny. How to improve EQ. Think about Rick Beato. I don't think he shows the screen. So hey, at least I taught you guys like Rick Beato today. Shout out to Rick Beato. What's the BusyWorks black box deal again? Oh, if you guys go to busyworksbeats.com/black. So I'm gonna type it in real quick. busyworksbeats.com/black. So here's our bundle. We only do this once a year. This is basically everything I've ever offered ever. And it has 3,000 sounds, meaning one shots like wave samples, one shot samples, hi-hats, kicks, snares, that type of stuff. And it also has presets for plugins for FL Studio, Ableton Live. It has a lot of stuff I didn't list. It has MIDI, it has guitar loops, it has vocal chops in there, it has loops, it has a bunch of stuff. So, and then you also get my 4 plugins with 1,000 sounds and then in their entirety. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but basically my plugins, I have Halo 3D, my new plugin. I have Hypnos, which is another plugin with 100-something sounds. Halo 3D, I think, has 275 sounds. Hercules has 340 sounds. It's good for bass and pads. Halo 3D is good for just general mid-section sounds like keyboards, bells, smeary brass, stuff like that. Stuff you would put in the middle of your composition. Hercules is good for the low end and atmospheric stuff. So you're looking at bass and pads on that one. Hypnos is good for usually more like top end stuff, more keys on that one. And so you get those 3 plugins plus my new Serum 2-pack called Helios. That one has, man, probably 300 and, no, I forgot how many presets are in Helios, but it has a ton of presets in there for Serum 2 that are built off of multi-samples. They're not just simple presets for Serum. They're built off of multi-samples. And what else? I mean, there's so much value in here. It's crazy. So then you have the Blueprint XL bundle included. You have Premium Access, which is 80 plus courses on sound design, mixing, music theory, mastering, business mastery. You have a music production suite, for example. You have a lot of stuff in there. The certification program access. Man, so much stuff in our premium. 80 plus courses. Like it depends on where you're trying to go, whether you're trying to be a beat maker, a loop maker, a business person. We have all these different paths for you. And again, 30-day money back guarantee as per usual. Rodney Jerkins shouts us out. Illmind shouts us out. Metro Boomin shouts us out. What else? Man, there's so much stuff in here that it's kind of crazy. It really is crazy that I'm giving this away for $197, y'all. I hope you guys understand the courses alone. If you were to enroll at Full Sail, for example, these would easily be $40,000 to $60,000. Now, I don't have the financial backing of a bank to underwrite your loans to pay me. So, we're doing square business here. So in this case, the value supersedes the price by miles. Okay. Because you guys got to understand, universities would hire me to come in to talk to their students. And when I'm talking to their students, I'm like, in my head, this is no shade, but it's the truth. I remember going to this one university I won't name. And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, is this what he's teaching you guys? You'll never be successful if this is all he's teaching you guys. And in my head, I was like, let me give you the real science. And I don't think he liked me after that because I showed people what it really was. And I think it made him look a certain way and he took it a certain way. But in my heart, every time I get around somebody who's teaching like a low level thing and people want a high level thing, it's like, I feel like obligated to give them the high level thing. I remember I went to this business seminar for JT Fox out in LA before the pandemic. And they were just teaching people like the most basics of business. And like, it was all just like, they gave us some good advice, but a lot of it was like to sell us more coaching. And I'm like, come on, man, you can't leave this guy. He had a, what are those things where you shape your teeth, like teeth correction molds or whatever? He had a company that he was a scientist and a doctor, and he created a mold that you could put in your teeth and shape your teeth similar to like Invisalign or something like that. And he was like, how do I market? How do I get out there? And they were just like telling him the most basic stuff. I was so like, bruh, this guy is a multi-million-dollar idea and you're going to give them the most basic information ever. I felt so offended, and I gave him more information about how I marketed and how to do it. So what I'm trying to say is, I give you guys the real deal. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have some company paying me to do, to be their employee to give you guys tutorials. Like, this is for real stuff that works because it's worked for millions of people around the world. I would not even have a career if it wasn't for you guys getting success. So my success depends on your success. And so we train over 1 million producers around the world. Some are going to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Polo G, Trippie Redd, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Glorilla. Some have won Grammy plaques. Some have won platinum plaques. Grammy Awards is what I meant to say, not plaques. Grammy Awards. All right. So you guys can scroll down to see everything that I offer, but it's a lot. So for example, if you want to see all the detail of all the courses I have, go to busyworksbeats.com/premium, because this has the full list. So if you go to busyworksbeats.com/premium, it should pull up this page. And this goes through, a testimonial from a Grammy winning, I think this is audio.
Hey, for sure, man. Blessing talking to you, man. You're the OG, man. I used to watch all your videos back in the day, bro. It's crazy. You're the gold, man.
This guy has Grammy. He's won Grammys. I hope you guys understand. Or Grammy. A lot of platinum plaques, a lot of gold on his page, because he's grateful. I can see why people have him in a session or however his business works. He's a grateful person. Then you have another Grammy winner here, Slim Pharaoh. And I don't think there's an audio message here, but he basically just says started year. Oh, wait, let me run it back. His message says, legend started years ago by watching your tutorials. And then, again, Grammy winning, platinum plaque, multi-platinum. So the students that ran with the information and actually applied it, of course they got better at musicianship and all that, but the music business is more than how well you play guitar. You got to have a well-roundedness if you want to stand out, in my opinion. So this is the full list of the courses. We added a bunch of new courses. We added Sample Science, which is a whole course on how to sample for hip hop. Complete Producer, which is like how to compose, arrange, and songwrite, more for the general producer, not necessarily hip hop. You have Suno Studio for those who are in AI. I even have a course. This is probably the most thorough course I've ever made on online business ever. It's called Faceless Type Beat course, and it goes through step by step, literally, on how to build a type beat business from scratch, like every single step, no step unturned. The marketing systems, the email systems. I show you guys how to get your first 10,000 Spotify listeners. I show you a lot of stuff in this course, and I'm surprised that I packed that much value into that course because I had to step in the mindset of starting over completely. And you guys will see everything, how to cut costs, how to get straight to. It's very deep. This is probably my best value course next to my higher level business stuff. Then you got drum patterns course, Logic Pro beat mixing, mastering, 808 mixing, Logic Pro vocal mixing, Logic Pro beat making, producer path for those who want to be producers, how to make soul beats, kind of straightforward there. Chord codes. You got MIDI melody for those who click in melodies. I'll show you guys a process of how to think about that. Master classes, sound design 101. So those are just the new courses. Like you could sit here and scroll for like a solid minute. Okay, that's how much information I've been teaching over the years. And I made sure to give you guys information that actually works. And then again, here's the one time if you want to join premium, that's busyworksbeats.com/premium. This is just for the premium, but you guys can get way more than premium if you guys go to busyworksbeats.com/black. Okay, for like barely a little bit more, you guys get way more than just premium. So it's a lot to offer. It's almost hard to explain because I have so much stuff. It's almost too hard to explain what I offer. Do you have a link for a good auto tune? The Waves auto tune good? I haven't gotten my Waves to sound like auto tune from Entourage, but Waves tune can do what it does, but I haven't gotten it to sound like the real deal. But it's a good plugin if you just want to save money. All right, so y'all, I don't want to stress my voice too much. We're over the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to go ahead and end this here. All you guys got to go to is busyworksbeats.com. Now, if you want a bunch of freebies and you want to get straight into the mix, go to busyworksbeats.com/black-bonus. Let me show you what the webpage looks like so you don't think it's like some... Make sure you type in the right thing. All right, so if you go to busyworksbeats.com/black-bonus, it should take you to here. You guys can get free gifts for watching today. It's actually 2 Omnisphere banks. I should update this. So you're getting 2 Omnisphere banks and 2 Analog Lab banks for free. We're going to do a Omnisphere 3 giveaway November 15th. So you want to hop into the giveaway. Completely free to enter. And you get 2 Omnisphere banks for free just for hopping in and 2 Analog Lab banks for free. In total, I think those are 250 sounds for free just for hopping in, joining our email list where we send out a bunch of stuff. All right, y'all. I got to protect my voice here. I appreciate you guys. Peace.